In this video, I'm going to discuss how to use the split method to split or break strings into substrings. The split method is used for splitting a string into 8 substrings based on the given delimiter or regular expression. Variants of the split method. There are 2 variants of the split method in string class. 1. We have a string method that accepts a string that is the regular expression. That is the delimiter. Now, this method returns an array of strings after splitting an input based on the delimiting regular expression. Let us look at an example. I'm going to create a new program here, so I'll go to the package village coder and I'll create a new class. I'm calling the program split demo. And you have to choose public static void main because there is a program. Now we are provided with a programming stub, a code stub, so let us take it off here. And I'm going to define a string that I'm going to split. So let me define a very simple string here. Alright, so that is the string. So that is the string to split. So that is a string that I'm going to split. What I'm going to do is to there is a full string literal, and I'm going to split it into substrings using a regular expression or a delimiter passed to the split method. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is to define a string array reference variable. One thing that you have to understand is that the split method splits the string into tokens or substring and stores them into an array of strings. And I'm calling it array1. So I'm saying that split the string into the string array. So what you can see here is that I've defined a reference variable called array1, and it stores an array of strings here. Now, so what will happen here is that the string will be split into substrings and stored in the reference array. So here I want to print to the console so that I will know the method that I evoked. So as you can see, that is the method that I'm calling. Now I want to know the number of tokens or substrings I'm going to have here. So there are going to be array1.length tokens. So if the length of the array is 4, then we are going to see there are 4 tokens. If it is 5, you see there are 5 tokens over here. Now the next thing I want to do is to count the number of tokens here. So what I want to do is that as I print out the tokens, I want to be counting them, like token 1, token 2. So I'm going to define an int variable called counts, and I'll initialize it to 1. So I'll say count the tokens here. I'll call the for each loop to cycle through all the tokens. So here I'll be going through the tokens and printing them one after the other. All right, so we are going to have token 1, token 2, and so forth. So you have token 1, then the token 1 will be printed to the console, and because I am counting, the number of tokens, and I've initialized this to 1, after each cycle I have to increase the value of counts. All right, so that is what we're going to have here. So let us see the number of tokens we are going to have when we run this program. If you look at what we have here, the delimiter or the regular expression is the /, so it will separate day and month. So the first token is going to be day, the second token will be month, the third will be year, and there is another slash here, and of course the fourth should be an empty string here. But when you call this variation of the split method, it trims all empty strings. In other words, it doesn't print empty strings. If we want to print empty strings, there is a way to do that, and we will get to that. So in our first example, we are going to see only 3 substrings or tokens. They are going to be day, month, and year. So day, month, and year. There is an empty string after this last /, but that will be trimmed out. It will not be printed, because it doesn't count. It is somehow a 0 substring. It doesn't count. So let us see how this pans out. Yeah, so we see that is the method that we have called, that is string.split, and we pass just a regular expression to it, that is 1 delimiter, and there are 3 tokens. So you see this, there are array1.length, so there are 3 tokens here. So token 1 is day, token 2 month, token 3 year. So let us look at the second example. At times too, we can decide the number of tokens that we want to print. That is, we can decide the number of times that the split method is used to split the string around these delimiters, and that will be the second variation of the split method. 2. We also have the split method that accepts the string as a regular expression and another value, which is an int, as the limit. Now, this variant of the method is used to limit the number of tokens or substrings to a certain number. The limit determines the number of times the pattern in the regular expression is applied. The limit can be positive or negative. Now, let us look at the example. Now, let us look at the second variation of the split method. First, I'm going to leave a space here. So, leave a space. Now, in a second variation of the split method takes 2 arguments instead of 1. So the first is the regular expression, and it also takes another argument that is an int argument, and that determines, or that is the limit of the number of substrings or the tokens that we're going to have. So here we are passing limit value, and that is 0. We are looking at a case where the limit is 0. So limit is 0 here. Now let us call this the arrow 2. So here we will split it using the same regular expression, that is the /, and we will pass another argument to it, that is 0. So here the limit is 0. We have already defined, declared and defined an int variable called count, but I want to reset the value of count here, so that there is a new count, so I want to reset the value of count. So here we print the number of tokens. And we are now going to cycle through the tokens and print the individual tokens here. So we will be printing the token. So here is print token. So token will be printed and the value of count will be incremented here. So increase count. And that is essentially what we are seeing here. So we have two programs here. The first one, we printed the tokens, and that was the first variation of the split method, and now we are looking at the second variation of the split method, which takes two arguments. That is the regular expression, that is the limit that we have to use to split or tokenize the string, as well as the number of divisions that we want to have in the string. So let us test this code and see what we get here. Alright, so you can see that is the first one that we did, and we call the first variation of the method, and that was the one that we passed just one argument to it, that is the string delimiter or the regular expression. But the second one too, we call this, that is we pass the regular expression as well as a limit to it, and the limit passed was 0. And you can see that the two are essentially the same. It is the same because the limit is 0 means that there is no limit as to the number of tokens we want to have. So that means that give us all the tokens. So I mean, the second one is pretty much the same as the first one. That is, when the limit is 0, it is very similar, or it is the same as calling the first variation of the split method, that is where we passed only one argument to it. So you can use the first one to have the same output, or you can use the second one where you pass 0 as the limit to it. Now let us look at a third way that we can do this. So what happens if the limit is not 0? Let us also look at that. So we will look at this, the third way that we can have this. And first I want to leave a space here, so leave space, and let's go on to the third one. Now we want to look at a case where we have the method, and the number of limits, or ES is 1, the limit is 1. So I can essentially copy this code. There will be no need to type the whole of this again. So I'll copy this code and I'll paste it down here, and I'll make some few changes here. First is that now the limit is 1, it is no more 0. And the second thing is that because I have already defined the array2, there is no need to define it again, but I'm gonna call this array3, and the limit is 1 here. So here too I have to reset count to 1 because I'm going to do new splitting here. And if you look at what we have here, we're saying that there are because I am using the array3, I need to change this also to array3. Okay, so this prints the number of tokens. Then of course I'm using array3, not array2, so I have to change this one also to array3. And then I have this here, so token 1, token 2. That, so let me print this, and we will look at the third way that we have this. So in this case we have the number of limits to be 1. Let us see what happens here. So look at the third one that we have here, and we have str.split, the regular expression is 1, and the limit is 1. So what it means is that we are limiting the tokens or the substrings to 1. So give us only one substring. In other words, don't split it at all, because the string is 1 and there is the whole string that we have here. The whole string is here, and we are saying that I want you to give me substrings, but just one substring. So if I divide it here, I will get 2. The moment I divide it, I will get 2. So I have to give the whole thing to you as one substring. So that is why we see the whole of the substring also here, because we pass 1 to it and we say that we wanted just one token. Now let us try more examples here. Let's copy the whole of this, leave a space, and go to the next one. So here we leave a space, and this time around we want to change the limit to 2. So let us also call this array 4. And that is what we have. So now we want to look at the case where we pass, the limit as 2. So that means that the string has to be divided into 2 tokens or 2 substrings, and that is the string that we have here. So during the iteration, what we're gonna get as the output is that it will divide the string at this regular expression or delimiter. So we are going to have day as 1 and the whole of this as 1. We are going to have day as 1, then month/year/ as the second one. So we are going to have just 2 substrings, because we've asked that we want the number of strings to be limited to 2. So that means only the first delimiter will be applied. So the limit number tells us how many times do we have to apply this pattern to divide the string. If it is 2, then it says that we have to apply it n-1 times. If the limit is 2, then it means we have to apply it limit -1 times. If it is 2, we have to apply it 1 time to divide it once, and that means we will have 2 substrings or tokens. So let us also try this and see. Yeah, so the last one, that is the 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth one, that is when the limit is 2, we have 2 tokens. So it means that we have limited the number of tokens to 2. So token 1 is day, and the whole of the rest is token 2, that is month/year/. Now let us take this further and look at when the limit is 3, so that we get the understanding very well. So here I'm going to change the limit to 3. And here I'm calling it array 5 because the previous one was array 4. Alright, so we are going to run this and we'll see what happens when the limit is 3. So let's see. So when the limit is 3, we have, oh sorry, there was a problem here. It should have not been 1 token. Let us check. There is a problem here. Maybe we didn't change something. Of course we didn't change something here, I'm very sure. Yeah, we didn't change the number of limit here. We left 1 here. It should have been changed to 3. Sorry. Okay, so now we are set to go. Alright, so if you look at it, when the limit is 3, there are 3 tokens, and we have day, year, day, month, and year. And if you look at what we have in here, the string is split here, so day 1, month 2, and year. And this delimiter here, that is the third occurrence of the / is not applied because the limit is 3. That means we have to get 3 tokens. So when we have the first one and the second one, we cannot apply this, so we have to let the rest be the last string or the last substring. So we have 3 over there. Now let's take this one more time and check the case where the limit is 4. So if the limit is 4 here, and we are gonna have 4 here, so here the array here is gonna be array 6. Alright, so let's see if we are done with it. Okay, array 6. Alright, so let us run this and see the last results here. Okay, so when the limit is 4, what happens? Alright, so when the limit is 4, then we can have 4 tokens. So let us see, there are 4 tokens. The first is day, second is month, third is year, and the fourth is an empty string. And this is what I was talking about. Look here, because we can now have 4 strings because the limit is 4. When the pattern is applied here, we have the first string here, that is the first substring day, second month slash, third year slash, but there is nothing here, so there is an empty string. So we have 1 2 3 4, and that is that. Okay, so here we talked about the many ways that we can apply the split method. We can have the case where we have multiple delimiters, and I want us to look at that case. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to define another string, and we are going to have multiple delimiters in the string. So first, let me copy this and make some modifications in it. I'm going to copy this and make some slight modifications here. Yeah, so what we're doing literally here is that we're going to the first instance that we had. Alright, so the first instance, we had a case where we passed a string, that is the regular expression, to the split method, and here this is array 6, so we're gonna call this array 7. And I want to define another string. We have already declared str as a string, so I'm not gonna put the string there. I'm going to type str, and now str is gonna be so that is the new string. All right, that is the new string that we are going to use to we are going to split. So array 7, and here I'm going to evoke the first variation, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use multiple delimiters. We have the percentage sign, the colon, and of course the hyphen. So these are delimiters, so we put them in double quotation mark to show that. So if you look at what we have here, we have percentage sign, the colon, and the hyphen. Now when we have this thing over here, we have 3 delimiters, but the split method is going to treat, or the compiler is going to treat this as one. If we want to tell the compiler that these are individual delimiters put together, we have to put them in a square bracket. So when we put them in a square bracket, what we're telling the compiler is that these are individual strings put together, so we have a multiple string here. Let's change this to 7 and this. Okay, so here we reset count. So let us look at the code that we have here. So that is the case that we have multiple delimiters, so we'll print this out. Let me add something here to remind us that these are multiple delimiters. So these are multiple delimiters. So let us test the code and see. All right, so we're looking at the last one, and if you look at the last one, we have splits, and it takes the regular expression multiple delimiters, and it uses the regular expression or the multiple delimiters to tokenize or to divide the string into substrings. So we have A, B, C, D, we have A, B, C, D, because if you look at the string here, we have A, the percentage sign, B, colon, C, and hyphen, and these three things have been passed as delimiters. That is the percentage sign, the colon, and the hyphen here. So what happens if we take off the square bracket? If we forget the square bracket, as I did say, the constructor treats the whole of this as one delimiter. Let's see. If I take it off, it will treat this as one delimiter, and because we don't have percentage colon hyphen as one here, the compiler is going to print the whole of this as one token because we don't see this in here. So let us see what happens here. So if you look at this, we have just one token and it prints the whole of the thing here because the percentage, the colon, and the hyphen, these are not delimiters defined within here. The split method, or the compiler now, recognizes this as one delimiter, that is percentage, colon, and hyphen. So if we were to put the whole of this exactly here, like percentage, colon, and hyphen, then of course it is going to break it at this point, treating the whole of this as one. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, so you can see that it broke it into one at where we had it exactly. So we had two tokens, so it uses it as one. So what we mean here is that when you want the constructor or the split method to take these as multiple delimiters, then you have to put it in a square bracket or in square brackets. That is what you have to do here. Okay, so you've got to put this here. Alright, then it will treat it as multiple delimiters. Okay, so you can see that we have it over here. So A, B, C, D. Now let us also look at a case where we want to use words or sentences as regular expression or delimiters. It is very cool. We can make good use of the first scenario, that is when we take off the square brackets, the compiler treats the whole of this as one delimiter. We can have a case like that. Let us copy the whole of this and look at what I'm saying. Alright, so here I'm going to change this to array 8, and I'm going to take off these thing. First I'm going to change the string that we have over here. I'll put in something else. Let's put in a sentence here instead of this so that we can understand the example that I'm talking about. So I'm going to type boy and girl and man, okay, and woman, sorry. Okay, so we have boy and girl and man and woman. So that is the string, and I'm going to pass end to it. So it's more or less like I have passed A and D. It's more or less like I have passed A and D. So because there are no square brackets, the split method or the compiler will see this as one delimiter. So it's going to split it into boy, girl, man, woman, because it will treat A and D as one delimiter. And that is array 8. So let me change this to array 8 too here. Okay, so I think that is essentially what we've done here. So let us try it and see. Okay, so if you look at it, see it here, we have multiple delimiters. Token 1 is boy, token 2 girl, token 3 man, token 4 woman. So it used the A and D. Now the moment we put square brackets around end, it will treat A, N, and D as individual delimiters. That is, it will look at it as multiple delimiters. Let us see what happens here. If we put square bracket on it, it means it will see the A as a delimiter. So we are going to see boy first. Then after the boy, we will see an empty string, because in between A and N there will be an empty string here. Let us see this. A lot of them here. Yeah. So we have boy. So from boy, Then we have an empty string because A and N are both delimiters. Then between N and D2 there is another empty string because N and D are both delimiters. Then between this we will now see a girl. Between D and a girl. So that is how it goes on. So you can see that it has now used the A and D as individual delimiters because we pass the square bracket. We're telling it that there is an example of multiple delimiters. I want us to look at a case where the limit is negative. When the limit is negative, it prints all the substrings or tokens that we have, including even trailing empty strings. So the empty strings are not printed when the limit is 0, and the empty strings are printed when the limit is negative. So let us look at a case where the limit is negative. So if you look at this code that we have here, now we have changed the limit to -1. So let me change this to -1 here. All right, the limit here is -1, and here too I have intentionally included a double slash here. So that is what we want to see. If you look at this code, what is going to happen here is that a negative number is not a counting number. So whenever you see negative, it means prints all the substrings. So we are going to have all the substrings, and it is also going to print the trailing zeros. Sorry, the trailing empty strings. So the first string is going to be day, second will be empty, third will be month, fourth will be empty, year, empty, then empty again. But if here is 0, it will not print the empty strings trailing. So first let us look at this case. Yeah, so if you look at the example here, when it is -1, we have day as the first token, and the second token in between these two delimiters there is no token, so it is empty, and the third is month, empty, year, and you can see that we have two trailing empty strings, and that is 6 and 7. But immediately change the -1 to 0, it will print all the strings this time round, but it will not print the trailing empty strings. So the difference is that when it is negative, all strings are printed, including empty strings that trail the string. But when it is 0, all strings are printed, but empty strings that trail the string are not printed. As simple as that. Let us look at this. Okay, so in this case, the empty strings that are found in between are printed, but the trailing ones are cut away. So we have day, empty, month, empty, year, but we don't have the rest of the strings as we had when here was -1.